£75 million of that fund goes on road widening and road building. And so I'd pretty much like to flip that investment and actually make more of that available for active travel. Because what we need is, and we really lack at the moment, is a network of safe cycleways and walking routes for people across West Yorkshire. I experienced this myself in Huddersfield, and we really need to put more money into that. And it's not just cycleways and walkways, it's also the infrastructure that we need. We need places for people to actually park their bikes within village centres and town centres, which are safe and secure, and with CCTV where necessary. So we need to do a lot more of that and a lot less of the prioritisation of the car, which we currently have under the existing Labour-led West Yorkshire Transport plan.
Well, I think it's a really good question. As a councillor, what I've found is that through COVID in particular, so many people have taken up walking. I mean, I've got neighbours who I never saw them from the waist down because they were always in their car. Now they're always out walking through COVID. So people, I think, have discovered walking, and I don't think that's going to change. Actually, there's a demand there for improving public rights of way, improving pavements, making sure that they're clear, making sure that people can get from A to B safely. And that's what I'm committed to do as mayor. And that means not just investing in public rights of way in rural areas, that's actually making sure that it's safe travel to school as well. That's making sure that people can go along our canal paths safely. It means people can travel through city centres safely too, because everybody can walk. Walking's so easy to enjoy for so many people. It's one of the cheapest, best ways that you can stay healthy too. So investing in safe walking routes, investing in routes that link to cycling as well, making sure that active travel marries up with different forms of active travel too, and ensuring that the usage is there, that we're encouraging people to use it, making sure that they understand that this is not just great value for money for them, but it's great value for money for the city, and it's great for our environment too. And it means looking at innovative ways as well. So I've seen greenways become really, really popular, and they've been really, really successful. They link with our environment and they support local communities and the connection between local communities. Well, where you can do that and you can inspire the community, you can make real change. And that's what I want to do as mayor.
I think one of the things I would be calling for is the ability to, within a revised national planning policy framework, for 20-minute or even 15-minute, actually I've heard of 15-minute neighbourhoods as well, to be brought in, and for policies around that to be brought in as part of spatial planning. So it is very important that people are able to get the things they need within walking distance or cycling distance. And so having shops, schools, doctors, all the things that people need as part of their everyday lives shouldn't require going in a car for half an hour or whatever to be able to get there. So very much in favour of that as a policy. And we need to have a revised national planning policy framework to be able to make that a reality. And it's certainly something I'd be looking at if we were to do any mayoral development areas as part of policies going forward. I would certainly look to having any mayoral development areas to have 15, 20-minute neighbourhood plans.
Again, I think it's a really good question, Lee. What people have told me that they want to do is they want to be able to walk or safely access the healthcare facilities, the high street, the shops, pubs, restaurants. They want to be able to do that in a safe fashion. They want to be able to do that in a way that actually allows them to walk there, to cycle there, and to have an experience when they do this too. The pedestrian pound is so important, and it's going to be so important for the recovery of our local high streets. As mayor, I have said that I will invest in and regenerate high streets. This is not just about people having to travel into city centres to be able to enjoy a retail experience or be able to eat in good restaurants. This is about making sure they can do that in their local areas too, and in our towns. And we are blessed with so many great towns across West Yorkshire. So regeneration of towns means it links with 20-minute neighbourhoods, it links with safe and active travel, it means it's good for the economy, it's good for the environment, it's good for people's health and well-being ultimately too. Safe travel is beneficial to our economy.
One of the things I've been doing is looking at some of the footpaths around those areas and making sure that those are of good quality. So that recycled tire crumbled surface that is a really quality surface for people to go on. So making sure that people can actually have walking routes which take them away from roads and enable them to get into town centres in a safe and away from pollution and things like that. So I think we need more of that. We need to be prioritising walking above road travel. One of the ways we could actually make that more visible is to actually ask questions about how much investment in each council area goes into road improvements against footpath and pavement improvements as well. So I think we need to make that more visible to people so we can see where council money goes, because ultimately everybody at some stage or other is a pedestrian, and so that's one of the reasons why we need to have more investment in that area. Certainly cycleways and things for people on low incomes. There's a lot of people now who are getting cheap cycles and making it more of a thing that people on lower incomes can get. And a lot of charity projects are getting bikes made up as part of the work that they do. I'm aware of Platform One in Huddersfield who give bikes away to people. And so making sure that people on low incomes are aware of it, but also making sure they've got the facilities to make it a pleasant thing to ride a bike.
So I think what we need to do here is work with planners and work with our local authority planners to make sure this is fundamentally part of schemes as we design them. It also links with regeneration. I've talked about having new opportunity areas targeted in each of our local authorities to not just help create jobs, not just help to create new skills and opportunities for people, but it's about linking to transport too and having safe transport. And that means working with all communities in this. It's also about value for money. People want to see that the transport schemes that they're being paid for are value for money and that they're used. Where they go incredibly over budget, it damages confidence in the schemes and it damages confidence in what's being delivered. So schemes that are on track and on budget, targeted, working with planners will help improve communities. But it's also about reaching out to, and I'm keen to do that, to go to communities and sell these schemes and say, this is what it can do, this is what it can deliver. I'm here to listen to you and get your feedback and your buy-in to this too, and work with communities on it. We've only seen in the last week or so with various cases that safe travel and safe walking is so important, especially in our city centres and in other areas of our communities. So we need to make sure people have the confidence to do that. If they have the confidence to do it, they will do it. They will go out and travel safely. They will walk, they'll cycle, and they'll access different facilities. And that's good for our region, and that's what we need to do more.
I think that this is part of the issue is how do you create really good mechanisms for enablement. So for instance, in the whole electric car charging aspect, I know it's not active travel, but if people could be enabled to perhaps have a car club where they go and do their shopping once a week in a vehicle that they all collectively have access to, and it reduces them having to buy the things in the first place, then actually people will be enabled to use active travel more often, but they can still have access to non-active travel when they need it. And I think those are the kind of conversations that need to be had in the private community, to say to people, we will deliver what is based on what you actually need, and we'll have a conversation with you, instead of just deciding that we'll descend on deprived communities and that we will decide that all your footpaths are going to be spick and span, but actually we don't do anything about the underlying deprivation behind it. And in terms of communities which are overlooked sometimes. As I said before, we need to really embrace the disabled community and make sure that they are enabled to be as active as possible, and that our active travel routes get as much investment in them, so that it isn't just feet and cycle wheels that are able to access them, but also people's mobility scooters.
To see how we can achieve zero carbon economy for West Yorkshire by 2038, is indicated that to achieve that, you'd need an 8,000% increase in cycling, which is a huge amount. Obviously, that's coming from a pretty low base, but that is the figure that they gave. So if that's what we need to do, if that's the target we need to achieve, we need to have plans which actually deliver that. Now, I know people, I know a number of people in Huddersfield who've been knocked down and had serious injuries as a result of being on their bikes, just going along the road and being hit by motorists. And so I think having safe cycle lanes is important. Having new cycle lanes is and protected ones is important, and not cycle lanes which stop halfway down a road and then it's take your chances time. So we need to ensure that cycling and walking is prioritised. I also think Slowways is a really interesting project, and I would certainly like to see West Yorkshire championing the idea of slowways between cities and towns, where people can actually take the time to move along. We also need investment in public transport. We need to make sure that public transport is a cheap option for people, because for many people on low incomes, public transport is still very expensive. And so whether it's publicly owned or privately owned, we need to find ways of getting those prices down. And I would very much like the same powers as the Mayor of London in that regard. And why they can have it in London and why we can't in West Yorkshire, I do not know. But somebody in the government no doubt would tell me, or not.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. It's about changing the culture and changing how people travel as a culture as well. And that means making sure we have a mass transit system that covers West Yorkshire and that links into the existing transport network too. I was on a call this morning, a Zoom call with the Transport Secretary, talking about green buses and making sure we deliver buses that go to where people want to go, that they can get a seat on those buses and they are on time as well. It's so important that people can rely on the existing network, and that will help us to build the network around it too, and how that network connects into walking routes, cycling routes, and other options, rail, everything that's there. It has to be combined. That will also inspire green jobs, which is great for our economy too, and making sure green jobs are based here in West Yorkshire and that companies are putting their green agenda at the heart of what they seek to do. And as a mayor, I want to champion that and challenge companies and say, how are you making sure that you are thinking of your carbon footprint? How are we working together on this? I am a champion of clean air. I want clean air and I want to improve clean air. What I don't agree with is I don't agree with congestion charging. What congestion charging does is it hits the lowest earners, it hits those on fixed incomes most, and those who can pay for congestion charging don't change their habits. And that's what we started this conversation with, about talking about changing the culture. So actually you need to give people a realistic, reliable alternative to use, and then they will get out of their car and use that alternative. But just seeking to hit them in the pocket doesn't take people with you. It doesn't change the way people behave, and it potentially damages our economy as well. So we need to work together to improve transport across West Yorkshire and have those conversations starting immediately on day one. Trust me, on day one, transport is the first thing that I will be talking about.
Not something which is within the gift of a mayor, but actually through enabling transport infrastructure in the right way, we can enable bold and brave decisions by individuals So, for instance, I've given up my car under the pandemic, and now I share one with my partner. But I'm able to make that decision because I have the option of doing that, whereas a lot of people, they might not. But it means that I will now be accessing public transport to get into the centre of town more than I ever did potentially. And I think that, I don't know if it's brave and bold, but I can certainly make sure that I am challenging wherever possible to make sure that our public transport money gets spent far more effectively, and that greater share for enabling active travel in terms of really good primary investment into really good paths in our communities is made, because normally it's an afterthought, and it's basically oftentimes on any kind of transport scheme a fig leaf, because they'll spend £11 million on something and then they'll spend £200,000 on active travel, and actually we probably need to even that ratio up far better so that active travel is at least getting 30% of the spend